Woo! All right, y'all. Welcome to the MMOA podcast brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Julie Brower, and I am beyond excited to be with our guest today, Ashley Clark, who is the new owner of the newest cash-based neuro recovery center in Fort Mill, South Carolina. So I'm going to go ahead and read you a little bit about Ashley. She's ridiculously impressive with how much she's accomplished and how specialized she has become in this population. So Ashley is a PT. She is located in Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is only about 15 minutes from uptown Charlotte, where I am located right now. And she specializes in neuro recovery. She started her career in the local hospital system as the lead outpatient spinal cord injury physical therapist. During this time, she gained vital knowledge in the treatment of persons with neurological injuries. And in August of this year, she decided to bridge the gap between traditional healthcare deems appropriate and what the neurological population actually desires and needs by opening Revive Neuro Recovery Center. Ashley is also a certified FES clinician. She's a certified rewalk clinician, a Locomat clinician and trainer, and a certified adaptive inclusive trainer. She believes with consistency and hard work, anything is possible. Beautiful. Ashley, good morning. How are you today?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get to chat with you again this morning and just kind of share what Revive is about.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's awesome to see you again. I was able to go visit Ashley at her clinic and play with all of the equipment and hang out for a while. And I was just so impressed and so happy that this is an option in the Carolinas. And I wanted to bring more information about this type of place to you all. And the amount of people that reached out to me and were like, Julie, this is my dream job. Like, I need to know more about this because this is exactly what I want to do. So let's start from the beginning, right? So you're in the traditional hospital system. You're working in a traditional neuro clinic. What were you going through throughout your career in the traditional medical system that led you to make this jump, that led you to be like, I got to do things my own way? So what barriers did you find in the traditional medical system? Like, really, what made you make that leap?
That's a really deep question. I mean, there's a lot of things that I feel like led me to make the leap. And I wish I would have done it sooner. So for those of you out there that are thinking about it, just do it. Step outside your comfort zone. It's totally worth it. I think a couple of the big things would be I wasn't doing a lot of neuro in my current job. I had stepped back from that for a little while just to kind of have a better work-life balance. And I just didn't feel like I could provide my patients what they needed at that time. So I currently was working in acute care, not seeing a lot of neuro, and just neuro is my passion. It's what I love. I'm good at it. I feel like I was just kind of wasting a skill that I had to be able to make a difference for people and in their lives. And it's something I just really wanted to get back to. So that was, one of the main reasons I opened Revived, and it has been so fulfilling to be able to work with this population again, and just know that, in therapy in this day and time, like, you can still make a big difference and you can still be fulfilled in your job at the same time. I think that was a big thing. And then, I've been a therapist for about 12 years. I sound old saying that, I feel like, but I've just seen a big change in healthcare, in the little amount of time I've been a therapist, which is sad. When I first came in, I felt like it was more patient-centered, and it could have been, I was a naive therapist, who knows? But I felt like it was more patient-centered, and it was what was best for the patient. What can we do to help them, in therapy, outside of therapy. And unfortunately now, like, healthcare is a business, right? It's how many patients can you see in a day? What is your productivity? How much are you billing out? And it's just more and more and more that way, and less about what is actually important. And I felt like a lot of things were falling through the cracks in the medical system, especially in this population. And I wanted to be able to solve that type of problem. So between those two things, And then just personally having that better work-life balance, honestly. I know we've talked about this before, but I was going to work at 7:30 in the morning for my first patient at 8. I was staying until like 7:30 at night when I was supposed to get off at 4:30, just to be able to get everything done. And you just can't have a life outside of that. And just the financial freedom, time freedom to do things that you would enjoy, outside of work. So I think those are probably the big things that led me to open Revive. And I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So you all, just to give you some insight, when I went to go see Ashley and I was talking to her about this same journey, she was telling me how, her and another colleague would leave work. They'd go across the street to the burger place, get a burger and a beer, and go back to the clinic after dinner to continue working until like 8 p.m. or after. Yeah. And I know that so many people listening right now are probably like, yep, 100% have been there, done that. And so to continually hear this idea of just like freedom and like you're glowing with this happiness that you're doing what you love, like it's still possible to do that. Now, specifically talking about like a fitness forward approach, what were you seeing like in your traditional hospital-based job, in that environment, in that culture? Like, were you able to be fitness forward? And like, if so, what did that look like? And if not, what were the barriers to you being able to practice that way?
Yeah. So, I was really fortunate coming out of PT school. I had a rotation at this same site that I got hired at. So, right out of school, I was able to work with a population I loved. And I was surrounded by amazing colleagues. I learned so much from them. I had very good mentorship. I had really supportive management. So from that standpoint, I can't complain about any of that. I remember in my interview, actually, I was talking to a friend about this the other day. In my interview there, they asked like, what are your 5-10-year plans? Like whatever. And one of my answers was I wanted to be able to develop some type of community program or some type of program to put Charlotte on the map compared to other centers across the nation, across the world that were offering these kind of fitness forward type programs or day programs where people with neurological injuries could come either in addition to their therapy or after their therapy to still stay active and healthy. And that was just a really big goal that I had. And unfortunately, we just never saw eye to eye, myself and like the powers that be. It was kind of like the chicken or the egg, like we have to have the population to be able to build that, for us to invest in it. And I'm like, well, in the neuro community, like they go online and they Google, best whatever center who has what equipment. So I was like, you have to have the equipment. If you build it, they'll come type thing, So it's kind of that back and forth. We were able to enhance the community fitness program there. We hired an amazing exercise physiologist in Lauren. We got to work hand in hand with her. But again, she was limited just like we were in as far as space, equipment, time, and just the manpower to do these things. And I think, at the end of the day, it's just kind of what is important to the center. What do they want to be able to offer and what's bringing in the money, honestly. So I feel like I was able to do some fitness forward type stuff, neuro, you get to be very creative, think outside the box, but then you have to justify it. Right. So the biggest barrier I feel like I was facing looking back on it now, is just insurance. Someone who has a C4 or 5 spinal cord injury gets the same amount of visits as someone who sprained their ankle, and how am I going to be able to make a significant difference for them in a limited amount of visits or a limited amount of time? At that time, there was changes in healthcare to where people were getting, 30 visits, sometimes 10 visits, and it was shared between outpatient, all the therapies, and home health at the same time. So by the time they got to you, they might have only had 5 visits or 8 visits. And what can you really do to make an impact in, that amount of time for these people that have catastrophic injuries? So I feel like looking back, I probably would have said a different answer when I was in it, but looking back, I feel like insurance was the biggest limitation. And having those conversations with your patients that you have built these relationships with and fostered to say, hey, like, unfortunately, we're not making enough progress, or we've run out of visits. They don't hear that, they just hear, you're giving up on me. Like, you're saying I'm never going to walk again. Like, screw you, I'm out. Right. Which is unfortunate, because as therapists, we really care about our patients, right? We want them to get better and live an active lifestyle. And you've invested so much in them. And it's not that you personally don't think they can get better. It's just your hands are tied. Right. So I feel like that was probably the biggest barrier for me, was just the insurance restrictions. And then my vision didn't match up with the vision of where I was fully. They supported it to a certain extent. But just unfortunately, like, at the end of the day, people don't really care about if someone's sleeping better, if their nerve pain's better, their spasticity is better, is their bowel and bladder program better. Like, all those things doesn't matter when you're trying to say someone's made significant progress, whether that has made a really drastic difference in their life, to be able to go out and enjoy things, have better relationships with their family and that type of stuff. Insurance just doesn't care about that. So for me, I was able to kind of use all those barriers and frustrations I had and kind of turn it into a solution with Revive. So, I wouldn't change kind of going through that process of stuff, because now I get to have a center where I can be more fitness forward. I don't have restrictions. I can work on what's important to the client, and what they want to do, and they're invested. And just to kind of be able to see the smiles on their faces, like doing things that they like to do, has been very rewarding. And I feel like that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is making a difference, helping people get back to their lives, and feel like they're not a burden, and be fulfilled in your job.
Absolutely. And probably one of the things that was really tough is you would be going through this plan of care with patients, not getting as many visits as you would like, or having difficult expectations to set and everything like that. And then there wasn't something like Revive to send them to afterwards. Like the options were so limited. Did you find that was really difficult, or you were trying to put them in a good position when they would discharge from you and set them up and send them somewhere where you think they would get good care, but you were really thinking like, I just don't have options for them?
Yeah. I mean, for this population, there is just very limited options, right? And they have a lot of barriers themselves as far as like transportation. And, if the weather's bad, it's harder for them to get out and move around. So they have a lot of barriers, outside of just, the traditional things that we think about. So when I worked in outpatient, we did have like a local gym where we could send people, and they worked out with exercise physiologists. And, just over time, being able to build that relationship with those trainers was very beneficial for us, because I could say, hey, can you work on X, Y, and Z with Mr. Smith, and let us know when he can do that, and then send him back to therapy so we can justify it again, so we had a relationship with a center who closed during COVID, but it wasn't to the extent of like working with a therapist. They had the knowledge and they had some experience, but they just didn't have that background, and the ability to know, like, this is a great position, this is a compromising position for somebody. Maybe they're ready for some type of bracing or not. Or just to notice some red flag symptoms, like something here just isn't matching up. So we did have a center. It was farther away, so that was a barrier. A lot of people couldn't go. And they did an awesome job, to be honest. So, but yeah, I just feel like since they closed, and, I wanted to get back into neuro, I was like, this is my time. I used to work or I still work for restorative therapies, and I go around and do bike installs in people's homes. So just being able to talk to people across the nation, like about their experiences in rehab, things that they loved, a lot about what they hated. And a lot of them just kept mentioning these like activity-based therapy centers, right? So I was like, what is this? I need to look into this. And so, you know, I did research, run through the Christopher Reeve network, all this type of stuff. And I'm watching these videos and I'm like, man, I'm really jealous. Like these people are doing what I want to do. Right. And they look like they're having so much fun doing it. Like, how can I, as a therapist, do this? Because a lot of these centers are run by or owned by families of people that have had, you know, different type of neurological injuries. And they hire exercise physiologists to come in, and they get trained. Some of them have, you know, some training from like the Christopher Reeve network or something like that. And some is just kind of passed down. So I knew like I had the knowledge, right, to be able to do something like this, but how can I do it as a PT in business? I had no business knowledge. So how can I kind of get all those things together to have the best of all the worlds, you know, physical therapy, a wellness center that takes like a holistic approach just to keep people motivated and active. And so I finally figured it out, I think.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
opened.
clearly did your homework and learned from leaders in that space. And you went through Anushka, she's listening, she's one of our, she's in our MMOA older adult division. She goes, the grind is real. Literally went through that hustle and grind for years and years and years to see what the problems were. And then you were able to solve these problems that you know exist for this population over years and years of experience. And my next question for you is like, and I'm sure you asked yourself this a million times, like, why did I ever think a cash-based neuro clinic would work, right? I think it's it kind of raises our ears a little bit to say cash-based clinic, because you get kind of concerned, like, is this going to be able to be lucrative? Are people going to want to come here? And I think from the therapy world, like a cash-based ortho clinic makes sense. Like we can wrap our heads around where, you know, if you compare, I've talked to you about like the Onward physical therapy clinics around the nation, like someone has really severe pain, higher level athlete, I will pay anything to someone who is going to find the root of the problem, get this pain down, get me back to an activity that I love. And it's like, people know like this pain, this knee pain, this shoulder twinge, it's not forever, right? It's not this long-term problem, but rest for them is not an option. Like they want to be able to get into the gym, my gosh, the next day.
Right.
So paying cash to someone who is incredibly skilled at being able to solve that problem fairly quickly, knowing that they're going to recover fairly quickly, is tangible. So when I think of a neuro population, and they may be a chronic, you know, with an individual with a chronic spinal cord injury or a stroke, like how do you sell cash-based therapy to that population? Like what made you think, yes, these patients or families or whatever are going to not use their insurance and pay me cash to get them better?
Yeah, so I did ask myself that like 8,000 times. I think at the end of the day, it's all about your mindset, right? And I know that this population has a need. How can I solve that problem? I have the skills, I have the knowledge to do it. Now, how do I market that to them to let them know like, hey, I can help make these things better? Yes, in the neuro world, we can't guarantee like you're going to walk again or, you know, X, Y, Z, like you can ortho wise, but they can't get this care anywhere else. Right. And traditional therapy, you have to be making these functional gains. And after that, they have nowhere to go. So I truly believe with consistency and just hard work, you're going to notice progress. I mean, since August with the people I've been working with, I mean, they have made leaps and bounds in terms of their recovery. And I've seen people with chronic injuries and acute injuries. And honestly, I've seen faster progress with them than I did in traditional healthcare. In just a limited amount of time. Yeah, it takes longer. But you know, I think at the end of the day, you have to be able to build the rapport with these patients. That's the biggest thing, is build the rapport, You have to meet them where they are. A lot of times it's, the darkest part of their life. They've had these traumatic injuries. So you have to just kind of meet with them where they're at, kind of walk through that process with them, let them know it's okay, like to express their feelings and concerns about stuff, and provide a safe environment to empower them. So I feel like a lot of it is empowering people to know, like, hey, I can do this. I was told I can't do this, but look, I am doing it now, is really what it's about. Less about like the cash and the money coming in, but just the service that you can offer, and the high level of care that you can provide. And people love it. Going around and meeting these people at these activity-based therapy centers, they're charging cash, and some of them charge a lot more than I charge.
Yeah.
And they're not a therapist. So, if they can do it, why can't I? And why can't I make it a higher level experience for these patients to get better outcomes?
Yeah.
Is kind of how I look at it. When I was in PT school, we didn't really learn about cash-based therapy. I'm sure it was around, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, right? And it's just because as therapists, we want to provide quality care, and we just can't do that in traditional healthcare. So I think it's going to be the wave of the future, no matter if you do ortho or neuro, peds, anything like that, because people, they want to build that relationship. They want to get to know you. They want you to know them to help them get better. That's part of recovery in this population.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so powerful of a statement to say, is like, the facts are that in the traditional medical system, and I mean, you and I have talked about this just throughout multiple settings that I've been in, you really can't provide the quality that you want. I think you can try and go about it a bunch of different ways. I think you can try and fly under the radar and do your thing. You're either going to get burned out or get fired, or you have to just come to the conclusion that, hey, if my philosophies don't align, if this is how I want to provide care for my patients, I need to start my own thing, right? Yep. I need to get out of it and I need to start my own thing. And that's really where you have to go. And I think that's a really, obviously a scary decision and leap for a lot of individuals, but yep. You are living proof that coming out on that other side is just, literally, you've said it multiple times, like, this is my dream. I am living my dream.
Yeah. And I mean, just like I told you before, like, I don't regret making the leap. It has been very fulfilling, and just working in the traditional healthcare system, you just go through the motions and you do what you need to do, fly under the radar, get your productivity, but that's not what we signed up for. Right. So in the limited amount of time that I have been able to open Revive, treat these patients, it has just renewed my passion for therapy. I feel like a lot of times right now, everyone's burnt out and we're trying to figure out what else are we going to do outside of therapy. It's just not for me. But this has really just renewed my passion for it. I know this is what I want to do. I love it. And I feel like I'm making a difference at the same time. So don't be scared to make that leap. You definitely have to find some type of business coaching is key, because we don't learn that type of stuff in school. But I, like I said, I wish I would have done it sooner.
Yeah. Now, in terms of, you mentioned some earlier, but if you were to give your top maybe 3 or 4, whether they were other activities-based centers or individuals, whether they were therapists, business owners, or business coaches, if you were to give 3 or 4 of the people that you would say taught you what you needed to know to start Revive, or they were the most inspirational individuals or clinics or programs, what would those top 3 or 4 be?
That's a good question. Gosh,
you probably have a lot, but
there's so many. Yeah. I mean, just to generalize, my top 1 would be honestly just my patients in general. They were always searching for more, right? Where can I go? What else can I do? I want to get better, or I want to get back to lifting weights. I want to do this. I want to do that. Right. And I just didn't have anywhere to send them. So I think just being inspired by my patients, and how can I fill that void, was the big thing. And that led me into just researching more. And I talked to Ian and Dale out at NeuroWorks in Utah. They were super helpful. They have an amazing facility out there. It is insurance based, but they do a lot of different programs there. And they just, helped inspired me. I talked to them a few times on Zoom, over the phone, like, how did you do this and that? And, they've been able to build an amazing program, nonprofit. Jan is amazing. She's so smart. She's been able to work, with the like as far as laws and stuff go out there, to kind of be able to get money from the state to help people come to their center. They have adaptive sports programs. So we have one of those here, and just being able to see those people be happy and enjoy recreation. So, I would say my patients, probably NeuroWorks, definitely, the local adaptive sports program. And then WheelWOD, honestly, adaptive CrossFit.
Awesome. Yeah.
Right. So how can I combine all these worlds together, and provide that here, in Charlotte, where we don't have access to a lot of those things? And how can I make it affordable? Would be the next thing for this population. So I definitely think it's a new wave of kind of therapy, or just inclusion for this population, which is super important, because a lot of people just see the physical limitations, but there's just a whole mental game to it as well. And that's probably bigger than actually the physical limitations that they have. So using exercise, fitness, just being active to help with their mental health, is a big step in recovery.
Yeah, I love it. I love that patience was your number one. That's beautiful. We need to take note of that. We do, like, our patients are enough to inspire us to, like, give them more, listen, and figure out how to solve the problem that they have. I love that. It's beautiful. Okay, so let's dive into Revive. So Ashley's sitting in Revive right now. The place is absolutely beautiful. So let's talk about, are you going after a certain patient avatar? Is it anyone who has a neurological impairment, whether it's acute or subacute or chronic? Are you going after certain diagnoses? Are you going after a certain age? What is the patient demographic that you are seeking? One, and then two, how are you finding them, and how are they finding you?
So I am kind of targeting all neuro, non-progressive neuro. So, if someone does have MS, as long as they're not in an active flare. So all non-progressive neuro, any type of lower body amputees, is kind of my niche. I am not a pediatric therapist. I have tried. That's not my thing. I love kids, but I'm just not a good peds therapist. So right now, 14 and older, I would love to be able to hire a pediatric therapist in the future, to be able to kind of tap into that population, because there's a big need there. And then as far as marketing, I mean, that's, just trying to get your name out there. That's the name of the game, right? To let people know you exist. So I'm still kind of developing with that. I've gone to a lot of the local, support groups, stroke support groups, spinal cord groups, amputees support group. I've talked to a lot of the physicians I used to work for, the therapists I used to work with. I am actually going to the WheelWOD games in December to volunteer. So just kind of getting out there and building those relationships is kind of what it's about, right? In the neuro world, it's all word of mouth. So that's the name of the game, really, is just taking the time to develop the relationships, getting your name out there so people know who you are. Yeah. And then kind of going from there. Otherwise, I've kind of talked to some different orthotists, prosthetists. I have been in contact with a couple different exoskeleton companies, just to kind of see what we could provide from that standpoint. So just trying to get back into the neuro world. I've been out of it for a little while, but just building those relationships that I had before, kind of fostering them, and really, just get your name out there and your brand out there and what you provide. And, people come because that's what they want. So as far as, I see the whole spectrum from acute to chronic. Right now I have a couple people who, subacute, they've been out of inpatient rehab, can't get into outpatient for a month, 2 months. So, fortunately, they're able to come here and we can hit it hard, and they're not going to lose any progress that they made in inpatient rehab. And then I have people who have had their injury for 10, 11 years, and they just want to continue to stay active, and work out. They have specific goals that they want to do as well, which are obtainable, but they just don't have a place where they could go, to be able to work towards those.
Right. Wow. So you're casting a very wide net. So for the folks who are listening and they're thinking like, how do I start my networking and who do I start talking to? I mean, you're talking to physicians, current and prior colleagues, you are volunteering, you are getting into the community, you're talking to different like companies, like an exoskeleton company, like you are putting yourself all around your community. Now, my question, I'm sure a lot of people have the same question, is when it comes to a referral base from an inpatient rehab or an outpatient clinic, like talk to us about it. Is there any fear of competition? Are you seeing that one type of group of folks, like whether it's physicians versus your own colleagues, like who is looking at you as, oh my gosh, this would be amazing to send my patients to, versus who are maybe the groups that are looking at you as, I don't want to send them there because that's competition for me?
Right. I think some of it is assumption on my part, honestly. But going and talking to the inpatient rehabs, ones that I had no affiliation with before and ones that I had, worked at before, they have been the ones that have kind of been the biggest supporters and sending clients. And it all kind of depends on how I pitch it, right? So when I go to outpatient, I may pitch it different than how I pitch it to an inpatient rehab versus a support group. But some of the big barriers that I tried to solve with Revive was, one, after inpatient rehab, it just took so long for people to get into outpatient, right? There's only a couple neurotherapists in the area. There isn't a lot. Especially if you have a spinal cord injury, there's only one place to go through insurance to get care. Yep. And it's no fault of that therapist. He is really good. Ryan's really good. So he has a long wait list, right? So how can I fill that void, right? We don't want people making so much progress in inpatient rehab and then they have 2 months off.
Yep.
So I feel like I've been getting a lot of referrals from inpatient rehab because of that. And then, honestly, just yesterday, I got 2 referrals from a spinal cord doctor I used to work with. I think it's just trying to get your name out there and let them know, like, hey, I'm here to help support your patients and what they want, and to continue to be active, because we know in this population, they have a lot of secondary risk factors for mortality, and a lot of it comes with immobility. So if we can just continue to keep them moving and active, there's, so many benefits outside of a functional gain for them. As far as like outpatient centers, it could be seen as competition, but I'm not here to compete. I'm here for the patients. I really want to develop the relationships with those therapists to say, hey, you have, somebody that you're working with. How can I help support you with them so they can continue to progress in their insurance-based care, so they don't have to be discharged, so they don't plateau? Or what are some challenging things that y'all are running into? Like maybe someone just needs to build scap strength to be able to do their transfer better or get their trunk balance better to do that, but you can't consistently do that every single visit, right? Or maybe you have bigger fish to fry and you want to use your visits for other things. Like, I want to build that relationship with those therapists to show, like, I'm here to support you and to help your patients make this progress. So I think there is some of the like competition type thing, but that's not really what I'm here. I'm here to help the patients get better, whatever means that is. So the referrals are coming. I think it's just going to take time, I think, from the outpatient standpoint, just because you could be seen as competition. But we're just so different. I'm not doing a lot of, insurance-based kind of care, like transfers and stuff like that. I'm doing a lot of fitness, a lot of wellness, more holistic style approach, which is just going to help supplement the functional gains.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think about it, in a home health setting and thinking, or anyone who's using their insurance, and because I know what Oasis is telling me to do with my patients, right? I know what my company is saying, we need to work on XYZ because we want our Oasis scores to get better at discharge.
Mhm.
We are very bound in a lot of ways of what we work on. And when you think about someone who has a neurological impairment, and what they really need is like this mass repetition and practice. And I mean, just so much more than can be given in a traditional model, because we know that that's going to like drive neuroplasticity, right? Just the pure like repetition of tasks. And if you're able to collaborate where, yes, you're using your insurance, or you're going to outpatient to work on this specific thing, which you need to show this type of progress to continue to be able to use your insurance to pay for the services, then you can be a complete supplement to what they're doing, and vice versa. Like, I only see it as a win-win. If someone were to be looking at you as competition, I mean, that's only going to negatively affect the patient when you could be collaborating to maximize their potential.
Yep. And that's my goal, is to be able to do that. And, it's just fun at Revive. It's a little different too, because like you said, we can do mass repetition, high intensity stuff. And, maybe someone that has like a C5-6 complete injury, yes, we can put them in a harness and put them over a treadmill or on a vibration plate and stuff like that, which you can't do in traditional healthcare to help stimulate neuroplasticity, which could help them progress in the traditional healthcare setting as well. So yeah, it's more of a supplement. I kind of tell my clients it's like personal training on steroids, right? Because
I love it.
Training is.
I love it.
So, again, it's just like my hands aren't tied anymore, and I can do whatever is best for the patient, and whatever is meaningful to them, versus, kind of having to stick to this little algorithm of what, insurance says, or what, research or a book says that their level of injury, or, says that they should be able to do. I don't want to limit someone's potential. We're here to maximize what they can do, not necessarily say like, this is your limit.
Totally. So let's show us the clinic a little bit, kind of do a little turnaround so you guys can kind of get an idea of what Ashley has going on. I mean, she's got
the best for last.
Yeah, she's got, look at that. Oh, isn't that beautiful? She's got a squat rig. I mean, awesome. She's got weights. Oh, parallel bars. I think those are new since I've been there.
That's a work in progress, girl.
Looks amazing. Squat machine. Oh, there it is.
I think that's
the
what
harness
think,
system.
right?
So Ashley's got all this sexy stuff at this clinic, right? Because, and like she mentioned, a lot of her clientele are looking, when they're choosing where to go, they're choosing like, where am I going to go that has the equipment that can get me walking again, things like that. So we'll talk about the harness system in a minute, but just in general, like, how are you doing things differently than a regular clinic in terms of like, how are you able to bring that fitness forward approach within how you have designed and created your clinic?
I mean, honestly, if you talk about like equipment and stuff like that, like what's the best stuff to have? As therapists, our best tools are our hands, right? So if you can have really good hands-on manual skills, there's a lot of overlap in the neuro and ortho world. Like a lot of neuro people have orthopedic issues, shoulder pain, hip pain, back pain. So you have to be very good with your hands-on skills. But then just being creative and thinking outside the box, right? So like I said before, if you can build that relationship and that rapport with the patient, spend that time and get them, they're going to trust you, and then they'll do whatever you recommend, right? And they're not going to question it. Like yesterday, I had a guy and I was like, okay, we're going to take your walker away. We're going to do all this stuff. And he was like, do what? I've used a walker for like 10 years. And I was like, let's just try it, but if you build that rapport and that trust, they're going to do it. So I think just those two things, if you can kind of really do those two things, then all the equipment and stuff, it doesn't really matter, right? You can be creative with a limited amount of stuff. But as far as fitness forward, I think just thinking outside the box, that's been for me, even trying to get back into that, right? Kind of let go of this like traditional healthcare mindset of like, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and have the freedom to be creative again. Like, and just think, okay, like if they want to pick up something off the floor from their wheelchair, like what do I need to strengthen? How do I do that myself? Right. And what exercises do I do to make myself stronger, and then just modify them to support them, to keep them safe. You want to push them to an extent, but you don't want them not to be successful, because then they get frustrated, and everybody has at different levels. So you just have to have the right equipment, as far as support and straps and resistant assistance bands, stuff like that, to help challenge them from a fitness forward approach, but also not overdo it to where they get frustrated and want to give up and, kind of go down that slope. So I think equipment wise, I mean, you definitely have to have a harnessing system in this world. Everybody wants to be out of their wheelchair if they use one. They want to be in weight bearing. They want to get off their assisted devices. So how can we do that safely? Especially if you don't have a lot of manpower there to help you. So definitely some type of body weight support system, treadmill. And then if you have like a couple weights and some straps and resistance type bands, that's in a mat table. I mean, that's really all you need to get started. It's nice to have all the fancy things, right? I think as therapists, we like to have a lot of shiny objects that we can kind of use, and that's what patients look for. But at the end of the day, you don't have to have a whole lot to get started. And then you can kind of build from there.
Which is awesome, because I think a lot of, a big like fear point for a lot of therapists, if they were thinking about starting something like this, would be, there's no way I can start this. I don't have the money, or I just don't have all the equipment. I can't get all the equipment right away. And just like you said, like, especially neurotherapists, like y'all are so freaking creative. Like
That's the fun part.
You can do fitness forward with any amount of equipment, right? Or very like minimal equipment. And that's the beauty of it. It's like, you have to remember, like, think of what you've learned, like working in an inpatient rehab setting or an outpatient neuro setting. Like, you can be creative and you can make really awesome things happen. I mean, and I know that like the harness system is probably like the mainstay. Like, you want to make sure that you have that in your clinic, because it's not just about over the treadmill, right? It's not just treadmill training. I mean, when I was there in a clinic with Ashley, I was doing wall balls, like hooked up to this harness system, right? I was thinking like, what would I do in a CrossFit class? What would I do in a gym? And for someone who has a lot of balance issues, or, you're worried about them falling, and Ashley's she's a one woman show there. She doesn't have a second set of hands. I mean, it was pretty awesome. I mean, Ashley was showing how you could like hook yourself up into like the standing frame, and she was doing battle ropes. I mean, that stuff is amazing. And I know one of the biggest questions that you've gotten and that I've gotten is seeing just videos of your clinic is, someone tell me about the harness system. Does anyone have a hack for the harness system? So tell us how you got yours, like how you put it together and what your hack was, because it's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, so I have gotten a lot of questions about this. And if you work in a traditional healthcare setting, they're not going to allow you to use what I have.
Good to preface this with.
Yes. But, unfortunately, like in neuro, you have to have certain equipment, right? And if you say it's medical, they're going to add on a couple more zeros to the end of it, right? So the cheapest like body weight support type or any type of like harnessing system without the harnesses was like 10 grand. And then you throw the harnesses in, that's like another $2,000. So that's a lot of overhead right there. And that's only one thing. So I'll turn this here so y'all can see again. Through the activity-based therapy centers that I kind of talked to, a lot of them use this kind of like gantry crane, this thing going up. And it basically is meant to lift like tons of weight. A lot of people use it to lift like car engines and like things out of holes. So it's a gantry crane. I bought it at, I think it was Northern Tool. And then it has a hoist and a winch. So the hoist is what runs along the frame. And it can go over, different pieces of equipment or over ground. And then the hoist is just, kind of modified a little bit with the bar to hook the harnesses on. So you can't really tell how much body weight support you're giving. It's all just, experience and kind of seeing like how easy they're able to straighten their knees, how their trunk is looking. So that's really the only downside to it, honestly. Otherwise it functions the same. I've talked to my clients and they're like, I can't tell the difference in this in what I use at the hospital.
Wow. Amazing.
So
Love that.
yeah.
And how much money did you save, do you think?
So between this and like the cheapest body weight support I was able to find, probably $9,000.
$9,000, y'all. Hack of a lifetime right there.
Yep.
And
Yep.
podcast listeners, definitely go back and watch the video so you guys can get a visual of what this equipment looks like. I mean, Ashley's explaining it really, really well, but just so you all can kind of see in action what it looks like, definitely go back and watch, go ahead and watch the video. Yeah, it's awesome. And again, I think a lot of people think that you have to keep that harness system right where it is.
Mhm.
And you don't. You get to move it around. So you
Yeah.
can be doing other things throughout the clinic while you're hooked up to that harness system. So that's pretty amazing. She's got the squat rack as well. You're doing a lot of things, just like using the rig and the barbell as like a pulling point and not standing or squatting to a box. I mean, she's doing all the fitness things. It's absolutely, absolutely amazing. So when you think of like the future of how this clinic is going to evolve, right? You are combining PT, activities-based therapy, wellness. Like if you were to think of like your vision for this clinic and how it would expand and all the services that you would offer, like when this thing turns into exactly what you want it, what does that look like?
I wish I could have that now. I mean, so I just want it to be kind of like a one-stop shop, honestly, to where people don't have to go all over the place to get the care that they need. So I want it to be a well-rounded approach, like a holistic approach. So offering therapy services, this activity-based type stuff, wellness, but also kind of tapping into the mental side, mental health, have some type of counselor for clients and their caregivers. I think it's really important. Be able to partner up with a nutritionist is super important, I think, in this population, because you can't outwork a bad diet, and when you aren't very mobile, you have to be really cognizant about that. And I've had clients who have really honed in on that, and it has cured their shoulder pain, their hip pain, that type of stuff. So the counseling, nutrition, I would like to be able to do small fitness classes like adaptive CrossFit. I'm really excited, hopefully I'll be able to do that here soon in the next few months. And then I would love to be able to provide a space for adaptive sports. Our adaptive sports program, they don't have a big facility. They don't have a space where they can go and practice basketball and rugby and soccer. They have to travel across Charlotte area and rent out space, right? So just to be able to have a space for them to come where they can train, host, adaptive games would be awesome. And various sports would be my big goal. I would love to have some type of like underwater treadmill system, in the future, things like that. So yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit on that.
100%.
Everything that I could have, I would love to have, right? But I really think if I could do as far as the physical side and the mental side and nutrition, those are my main goals right now.
Yeah. Well, y'all, and if any of you out there are nutritionists, counselors, she mentioned a pediatric therapist earlier, keep following Ashley, because who knows, you may be able to get a job here at some point.
I hope so. That's the goal, right?
Yeah. After things get well.
Yeah, out of the traditional healthcare, show you what it's all about, and let you know like this is actually something that can work and you can love your job.
Heck yeah. I mean, some of my colleagues from the hospital and everything are like, I'm following this because, man, I'm biding my time when I have to get out of this hospital system, and she's the first place I'm going to want to go to look for a job. Like, you're going to have people lining up at your door, for sure. This is amazing. Awesome. This was incredible. Y'all, I am just like, being a home health therapist in Charlotte, I have had so many patients that I am just like at a loss because I don't have somewhere to send them. And my gosh, it was like, if I knew of Ashley's, if Ashley had her place for the past year or plus beyond, my goodness, it would serve so many of my folks. If you're in home health, you know that you get a lot of inappropriate referrals and you're like, you need really specialized neuro outpatient. And now I am just so grateful that I have somewhere to send my patients, and I know they're going to be getting excellent care. So I am just so grateful that you are a part of the Charlotte community now, and just thank you so much. Now, this is the second time I've been able to talk your ear off that you've made time for me for, and now
I appreciate it.
Everyone in this community gets to kind of learn from your process. And I'm sure people may have some more questions. Is there a good way for people, like the best way for people to reach you if they would like to continue a discussion?
Yeah, so if you have just like generalized about like what we offer, you can go to our website, just www.reviveclt.com. Just to kind of see like our services and stuff. If you have specific questions about things, they could email me. It's ashley@reviveclt.com. And I'll get back to you guys for sure.
Sweet. All right. This was awesome. Thank you so much. I'll have to come and just hang out at the clinic again.
Definitely come.
Out how some of the patients are doing.
Yeah, anytime. Anybody, if anybody wants to stop by and check it out, just shoot me a message and we can figure out a time that you can stop by and look at it.
Perfect.